And we are live. Welcome, gentlemen and ladies, to Rule Zero. I have a fantastic panel with me today. Some of the highest caliber gentlemen on the planet surrounding me on this wonderful YouTube screen. And today, what we're going to be discussing is picking your battles, okay? Picking your battles as a man, all right? What battles are worth fighting, and where are you better off employing a degree of prudence, okay? Because not every battle you're going to win, and sometimes it's not worth going into that particular battle. And I think what we've seen recently in the sphere is there's just a couple of things. I'll touch on them very briefly, and then we'll go around and say hello to the panel. Hey, Ryan, how's it going? You right?
Hi.
There's a couple of things that's happened recently in the sphere, and I just want to touch on them very briefly to kind of introduce this. And then we'll go around the panel, and then we'll crack into it, right? So, and I'll take that branding off Carl's face as well, because that's a little bit naughty. There we go. So basically, a couple of things have happened that are of interest. The first thing is the sad demise of Mr. Pat Stedman. Now, this has been quite well documented, and Ryan did a really good video on this. So I don't want to dwell on this for too long, because I don't want to make the show about him as such. But basically, for people watching this who don't know, Pat Stedman is a so-called dating coach, advises guys about getting married and so on and so forth. He fell down the QAnon MAGA rabbit hole pretty hard last year. Started posting all this pretty crazy QAnon-inspired stuff on his feeds, getting a whole new audience off the back of that. And then finally, he was involved with the storming of the Capitol back in January the 6th, okay? And he live streamed a lot of it, put it out on his feeds, etc., etc. And guess what happened? He got picked up by the FBI and arrested, and I believe the case is ongoing. As a sort of adjunct to that, he also bet 100K on Trump remaining president, which he lost. And he also made bets with other people on Twitter about the same thing. And well, he didn't really lose that because he didn't pay them back, but he lost those bets as well. So that's a man, and the thing about it is this: he has been praised by various figures, quite big figures in the manosphere space. You've had a lot of guys, big and small, coming out in the last week or so and saying, "Listen, Pat's a great guy because at least finally here's a man who stood up for what he believed in. He went out there, he put himself on a limb." And he did something. All of you lot on here, you're trying to be alpha, you're talking a big game, but here's a man who actually went and did something. Okay? Now, this is really what I want to discuss during this show, because that view, I can see their point. I can see why they're saying that. But my view on this is that if you take an action that is patently stupid, I don't see that as being like alpha or impressive or something to look up to. I just see that as being stupid. And that's why I think you should pick your battles. Now, what's happened more recently, and hopefully you guys can chime in more on this, is the GameStop stuff that we've seen over the last few days, where you've had a bunch of small-time investors basically pitting themselves against the Wall Street elite, against the hedge funds, and really making a stand for the small investor against the monolith of the, those supposedly in control. And on that level, I mean, that's a smaller rebellion perhaps, but on that level, I would say that those guys perhaps are doing something more worthwhile. But I'd be interested to hear everybody's views on this. So look, I've got on the panel with me today, Sterling Cooper, man of adult entertainment, international man of seduction and mystery. Carl, Mr. Black Label Logic is in the house. Mr. Aaron Clary, the grumpiest man on YouTube, and who seems to be wearing a Scrooge outfit today. You look a bit like, those...
I'm in my pajamas, and it's my Irish hat. Kind of like
okay.
Ireland. You might be aware of it. Your people invaded it,
I'd never heard of it. And we have also Mr. Ryan Stone with us as well. So who wants to chime in on this? What are your thoughts? So we got... and actually, also, we have the man, the legends, Mr. John, MLD, with a lovely lady.
Two. There's a gal on the bottom. Yeah, see?
Oh yeah, fantastic! Hallelujah! Living the dream.
I want to hear him.
Living the dream.
John, unmute yourself.
It's a little loud. I'm sorry. I just wanted to show you guys what it's like to actually touch a woman in real life.
Well, I'm certainly taking notes.
These are my girlfriends, and I got them both out of a vending machine. Mine price of $17.99. Here's my third girlfriend. Come here. You want to come say hi?
They look like
what are their names again?
What's that?
What are their names again?
1, 2, and 3. That's probably
This is Haruka, and this is what's your name, Miu, and then Mika. Mika, yeah.
a brace of high quality women for sure.
High quality women.
Why are they not fat?
Because they actually have a rare thing that American women don't have called self-respect.
Okay, good.
And so
Clearly.
calorie balance. But we just wanted to say hi. Say hi, girls. Say hi.
Hey guys, good to see you.
We're gonna leave now, but we just wanted to say hi. We're gonna go to club. So.
Wow, terrible. Good stuff.
See you, John.
Love you guys.
See you later. Well, that was a little insertion of degeneracy into the street, but let's get back to the more serious philosophical matters that we are discussing here while he's having a really good time with 3 chicks. So who's got some thoughts on this? Who wants to kick this one off? When should we pick our battles? When should we go into fight, and when should we hang back and say, hang on a minute, that's just stupid. I'm not going to do that.
I mean, look, I'll jump in first. I do have to agree that it took a tremendous amount of balls to sort of back up what he like. You have to give Pat Stedman credit where it's due in the fact that he was at least consistent. Right? Yeah. He was at least consistent with what he was like preaching. So like he was doing, like he said, he was doing all the QAnon stuff. I have a friend who is a regular listener to his like COVID cabal stuff on Periscope, and he was saying like stuff like, you know, trust the plan, go to the Capitol, and he went to the Capitol and he trusted the plan. At least, like, you have to at least say, okay, well, the guy was the man of his word. He was consistent. Now, was that a smart thing to do? Like, would I have done it? Nah, I wouldn't have stood like stormed the Capitol along with a lot of the people that went there. I wouldn't have done that. But look, I can see why a lot of people are praising him in like the manosphere spaces because of at least that sort of that line of consistency. You know, it's very, very easy for us to like sit back, especially if we're not in America, we're not on the ground. Like, you know, I was overseas. Like some of you guys are in Canada. Some of you, Aaron is, I don't know, in his fucking mum's basement or wherever the hell he hangs out. And it's very easy for us to sort of stand back and be like, oh, ha ha ha, look how stupid he is, because we didn't like the things that were pissing him off, the things that he was sort of trying to fight against, we don't really care as much about, right? If there was a battle that we held closer and more dear to our hearts, well, maybe somebody would be calling us an idiot right now too. So,
that is true.
At least I don't want the entire panel to be shitting on him the entire time. I mean, otherwise it'd be boring.
To be fair, I didn't shit on him in my video. It was mostly pointing his stuff out and just taking his own quotes on him. But I think, and here's where I disagree with you here. It takes balls to do that. That's like telling a crackhead. It takes balls to stick with crack. There's something to be said about being smart enough to know when to cut your losses, to know when there's a battle you can't fight. Like, there's nothing ignoble about a tactical retreat. I think that's a Terrence Popp line. Sometimes there's things you're not going to win, and you could stand there and do your fight at Thermopolis, the 300 battle there, but what did it get you? Here's why I considered it completely stupid. Let's look at it from the perspective of, is this guy giving me something I want to follow? Had a baby. Wife gave birth on like the 28th of December. He tweeted that out because attention is good, right? I don't know. If I had like a brand new family member, the last thing I'd do is tell you guys on Twitter so I could sell a course, but whatever. Brand new baby. Plans to move to Poland with his wife. Right now, he's living in his mom's basement, which I don't know if it's because he's poor or because it was a temporary thing until they moved to Poland. The point is, he had a plan. Now, say what you want about the idea of moving to Poland, say what you want about marriage, whatever. That's a plan. That's something I can get behind. He set his mind to a goal and did it. So where does the storming the Capitol fit in? You can't say he's overly invested in American politics because in like 2 weeks, he's gone. He's not even going to be in America.
That's
Who cares? On top of that, what's the first thing that happened during the arrests? They took all of those tweets he had about, I want to move to Poland right after this. And they're like, he's a flight risk. Judge takes his passport away. Right there. And you've got nothing but traditional conservative tweets about being a family man is the greatest thing ever. How does risking jail time increase the odds of your child having a wonderful, healthy household? So yeah, it took balls to do this shit, but it went against absolutely everything he actually had in his life that he thought was important. Which makes you wonder, was he just lying there and saying that this stuff was important because it got adulation of his TradCon like followers? Or was he just not able to see that these specific actions I take will fuck over 99% of the life goals that I have right now that I'm so close to fulfilling? Like, my parents' divorce was from gambling. So, like, I have zero tolerance for that shit.
I think he was so bought in. I think he had so much buy-in to that narrative, to the QAnon narrative.
Exactly.
He completely...
He bought his own hype. I'm not Terry. I'm Hulk Hogan, and I am truly a real American.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Ryan. I think he bought into his own hype so much that he completely ignored the possibility that it might not work out. And
I wouldn't even say, not even but that's the problem too. It's a certainty. It wasn't even a possibility. Like, it won't work out.
Yeah,
yeah, but that's not how he saw it, or how any of those people saw it. Though, I mean, on the contrary, they saw it as being a certainty that it would work out because they believed, or
because they're only listening to people who are absolutely insane.
Yeah, well, I would agree. But in their worldview, they 100% believed, 110% believed that something was going to happen on, well, the 6th of January and then the inauguration day, where Trump was going to overturn everything. And
sure, and your wife's batshit feminist friend tells her to cut her hair and dye it blue. You'll still be hot. If he doesn't like you, that's his fault. But then here we are with a dead bedroom and a wife with a pixie cut.
Well,
that's the part that scares me, though. Put all that aside. Think about how many fucking brands talking about masculinity are cheerleading this on. Well, at least he had balls. He did this. He did that. I'm like, dude, you guys are actively cheering a guy on for sabotaging his life out of one side of your mouth. Then on the other side of the mouth, telling people this is how you can min-max your life. You can bit the best life ever. Be an alpha male. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with... I don't mean to swear in your channel, Troy, but this is really ridiculous. They're actively encouraging people to walk themselves off a cliff and then cheering them on because that's what a real man would do. It's like a perversion of masculinity in whatever way you want to define it. Like, not being around for your kid, I'm pretty sure even Mr. Degenerate himself, Troy Francis, will agree, maybe going to jail before your kid is old enough to walk is a bad idea.
I mean, possibly on the scale of 1 to 10, it's not really up there with perfect parenting. But Sterling, I know you want to come in. Sterling, I know you wanted to come in. I think Carl wanted to interject as well. Did you have a quick one, Sterling? And then we'll get Carl.
No, go ahead, Carl. Go ahead, Carl.
Carl, have you got something?
I just wanted to say I don't like you all shitting on Stedman. I think the man is inspiring. I mean, based on his life, I've redone my entire bucket list to show how big my balls are. So I'm going to start by impregnating some random bar skank tonight on purpose. Then I'm going to go to Vegas and throw my life savings on double zero and roulette. I'm going to find a guy in a Hells Angels bar and tell him that leather chaps are for gay men. I'm going to let Sterling pick my next tattoo and where that's going to be placed on my body. I'm then going to go visit Clary with a passport and $50 and get him to lead me through Compton at 3 a.m. where we'll buy coke off a street dealer with a wad of cash. Then I'll buy the rest of my money is going into property in Detroit. I'm going to leverage shorts 10 times over in GameStop. I'm going to start raw dogging a rando from a bar, do a gangbang in South Africa, rob a bank so I can go to jail after that. And then I'm going to have the meeting with my tax attorney this live on Periscope.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good schedule of events, to be honest. I was really on board. Apart from the tax thing, I was really on board with all of that, to be honest. Sterling, that sounds like a typical night out for you, doesn't it?
Oh, look, it's like a Tuesday. Someone said something in the chat here. I think Mongo Box Crusher, great name by the way. He said leaders get to be above the fray, and he's right there. Like, or at least look, there was an old concept, like talking about masculinity and stuff, right? There was an old concept back in the day, like where kings and emperors used to be on the battlefield. They used to be like in the front line on the battlefield. Like that's part of the role of being a king, was that you had, if you're going to send like your nation to war with somebody, you had to fight. So there's like what this guy's alluding to here, right? Is that for you to like convince people, for you to like lead people into something, you have to be willing to put your ass on the line for it, rather than just stand back and be a cheerleader. So all the other guys who are out there who are like praising Pat Stedman, who were like, oh yeah, he believed what he said, like they weren't putting this, like, I don't agree with what I don't think what he did was intelligent, but don't misinterpret me there. But like I said, there's at least a lot of consistency there. versus these guys who are standing back, who were in America as well. A lot of these guys who were cheering him on were in America, like saying, yeah, he did the right thing, didn't go down there themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Including the president of the Manosphere himself, who, despite wearing a red MAGA cap for the last 4 years, I don't believe was there on that day.
He scrubbed his account.
On that day of the Patriots, which seems a little bit strange. Aaron, what do you think? Did you work out an ROI on the value of storming the Capitol versus not?
Well, funny you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is I don't know anything about Pat Stedman. I don't pay attention to the news or even drama or stuff like that. But there was no risk analysis. And the one thing I could give to the audience, because I'm old and what I've seen getting old, is choosing your battles, picking your battles. The best way is not to pick one. So sure, doing the analysis, yeah, go protest, storm the U.S. Capitol. Are you nuts? Like what was that about? Did you think? And so what I found, I know this is going to seem like an esoteric analogy, but if you guys ever play volleyball, not professionally or even like at a good level, but you're just playing fun, do you know how the majority of the points are scored? By the other team screwing up. And so you get these people like, oh, let's do the bump set spike, get it, and then we spike. It's like, no, just get it over to the other team, and that will statistically increase your chances that they're going to screw it up, knock it out of bounds or whatever, throw it in the net. And it's kind of the same thing with choosing your battles. To be successful long term, don't pick ones. I'm not saying to be a coward, and if it really comes to it, and stand your ground, or there's a real threat to you, then yeah, you're going to go to bed and choose that hill to die on. But for the most part, people's success is determined by not screwing up. It's not like I went and majored in the right thing and and I worked really hard. That certainly will help. But just not screwing up, not going to jail, not committing crimes, not storming the Capitol, not borrowing more money than you can afford, all these other things. If you simply don't screw up, you will win generally over the course of life. But yeah, you want to avoid battles for the most part. So I don't know Pat Stedman. I don't know I know because what you guys said, but you could say everything about Pat Stedman and stand up guy, and he stuck to it. It's like, you stormed the Capitol. Like, I'm wondering, maybe I should pet this scorpion. Maybe I should, what? So I just, that's where it's like, I don't know if he was hyped up on political ideology or crusaderism or what, but yeah, now the end result is he's in jail, or he's facing charges of other familial strife and other problems associated with lost money. That's another thing. $100,000 bet. Dude, I'd rather donate. If I had $100,000 to lose, I give it to charity. What are you doing? So it just sounds like someone who made a couple bad mistakes.
I think though, if you look at our popular culture, there's sort of they've created like this noble thing about fighting an uphill battle and ending in absolute tragedy. If you look at the movie Braveheart, the movie is basically, here's a guy who goes to fuck with the king, who has a much bigger army. He gets a couple of good punches in on the way, but in the end, he gets his cock cut off. So that's kind of been venerated within the masculine culture, like this idea of, well, even if you end up getting totally screwed up and fuck it up for yourself and all your friends in the end, just being there for the fight is noble. It's showing the noble spirit. And I think that's kind of where the mistake is. I think that's why I liked Fight Club more than I liked Braveheart, because in the end, they had backup for all those credit card data, so you didn't really change anything, but at least you made a powerful statement.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Well, I was going to say, Ryan might have an input being in the military. I mean, just from a risk assessment and.
The military gives two shits about how noble you look and that shit. Their point is force projection. Did I project force to an adequate necessity to serve whatever aims we're getting? Everything else is irrelevant. And I will say this about Fight Club. People forget the book ending was different. In the book, Tyler shot himself in the head in front of all of his cancer patients. So he's absolutely right. It wasn't a hero situation. That's all I got on that one.
So we've got Mr. A Patriarch here, who looks like he's got a very fine beard, although I assume that's not
fine
actually a
beard
picture
and a sense of humor.
But he's saying eye smelling cowardly fumes, and I suppose what he means by this is that he thinks that we are all being, simps, because we are not saying, yeah, he was right to storm the Capitol or whatever. But the point here is what is the point at which it is right to take. You do have to take action.
Perhaps don't waste your time.
Well, perhaps there is a point because I got into a conversation on Twitter about this because I wrote an essay or a little article last week called a eulogy for London, and I was just sort of like sobbing about the lockdown situation in London, how everything's boarded up and it's all miserable and blah blah blah. And then Kyle Trouble, let me just try and share the screen here. I'll see if I can just show this. Kyle Trouble, the noted blogger and podcaster, came back and shared this tweet with me, and he put, if you can see that. I don't know if anyone can see that really, but he just put, nice post, bro. Honest question for you, though, because I sense the pain in this writing. You've more or less said that people trying to fight are foolish for the last year. Do you see the irony in this? I asked this genuinely, not as an attack. And then I came back and I said, thanks, man. I think you have to pick your battles, which obviously I suppose was in my head when talking about this show. I always believed the Q stuff was nonsense, and I was basically proven right. Yes, some things are worth fighting for, but falling prey to disinformation is not a smart move, in my humble opinion. So what I kind of meant by that was, at some point, there are things you do have to, you say pick your battles. Well, at some point, there is a battle that perhaps you should have picked. And what he was talking about specifically there was lockdown and the fact that, many people are obviously unhappy about lockdown for obvious reasons and businesses being closed and stuff. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that because then that requires us to go down a number of different rabbit holes. But
you know what he's arguing though, right? It's that why don't we do something? That seems shit. Yeah, why don't we just, let's say masks don't work. We'll do that flat out argument, say that argument's 100% right. Well, at least we're doing something. That's a very feminine way of describing things, and I don't mean that to shame. I just mean girls like to seem busy as opposed to guys, which, I'd rather get things done. So, yeah, storming the Capitol, perfect example. What were you planning on? What was the outcome? What did you want to achieve? And I argue they wanted to be a part of history.
Yes.
They wanted to be in the history books as these noble savages stormed the Capitol and made things right. Boston Tea Party wasn't trying to make the news. They were literally trying to fuck with the king and start an insurrection. That's why they paid for the locks on the things. They threw how many $1 million worth of tea into the ocean. Basically trying to say, you staying here is going to be so cost prohibitive that you're just going to want to leave us alone. But they knew that that was an act of war. So if those guys storming the Capitol were really trying to do, make their stand, they'd have been armed, and they wouldn't have gone in with sealing a podium. They'd have gone in, taking people out to the guillotine. So I'd argue that's all a LARPing thing anyway. So all this pick your battles crap's dudes, don't tell me these guys were picking battles. They were there because it felt cool to be on the brand of making part of history. It's bullshit. I don't buy it at all. No offense to Kyle.
There was a degree of LARPing there. You're correct, Ryan, in the way that if it was the same intention about, well, we're sick with this shit, we're gonna completely overthrow it. Like you said, there would have been firearms. There would have been violence actually happening. But people were just oh, this is funny, this is memeable, and they made the mistake of walking onto the Capitol grounds. But here's the thing, we're talking about bringing it back to masculinity. A very masculine trait is the idea of calculated risk taking. Emphasis on the calculated.
Yes.
Part. Emphasis on the ability to outsmart your opponent. The ability to predict, to foresee potential outcomes and mitigate them and have a plan B. And I think there wasn't really a plan B.
Yes.
It was
there's classic, by the way. What do you think the Iliad and the Odyssey were about? Were about men being smarter than the gods. It wasn't about them being out alphaing. It was about them being smart and using their wits.
Yeah. I was going to say, speaking of the military as well, because now we got Paul here. It's
Paul.
Also a little bit of the art of war, a little bit of Sun Tzu, and I don't know if he said that those who retreat today can live to fight another day. Well, what did you achieve by now having a criminal record or any kind of short-sighted quote strategy like this? It's you're not going to be effective. A soldier, okay, fine, you retreat, but that soldier can fight in 5-6 more battles. Or even if you want to be political and participate in the political process and write posts and all that, that's fine. These guys, now that they got this, I guess, criminal record on, it's kind of over now, or at least there's going to be a black mark on the reputation. But just the idea that the number one thing to do in a battle is to survive, and then you can go ahead and over time fight more, push your cause more. But man, you cannot, one, get killed, or in this case, metaphorically, get arrested and no longer be able to fight. So it is a calculated, like Sterling was saying, it's a calculated risk. There has to be some intelligence. It's not just go up there, bang your chest, and yell out freedom.
Yeah,
Well, I just want to put it to you guys that if I had to ask you, what's more masculine, being brave or being effective? Because I would go with the latter, and here's my reasoning. If you're being brave, you can end up doing dumb things, but if you're effective, at least you get something productive done. And I just don't see what the end state is with that capital charging, unless they're, like someone said, dragging them out and guillotining them. And even then, what's your desired end state? I would say the guys on Reddit who decided fuck hedge funds this week and basically cost like $32 billion of short shares and crashed a major $12 billion hedge fund. Are they brave? Kinda. Some guys are putting their full paycheck or their life savings into this, but they are effective when the government has to come out and they're like, yeah, the president's people are monitoring the state of the GameStop stock. At that point, you're effective. And the message is very, very clear that, we are the children of the people who lost their homes in 2008, and you're still pulling the same bullshit now. And now we're going to start to organize and we're going to fight you. And that was effective. Showing up at the Capitol like this was 1776 when we're in 2020 or 2021 just tells me you're completely out of touch. It would have been much more effective getting like a bunch of people together and crashing something like the grid or crashing the stock market.
Well, I think some people were more prepared than others at the Capitol. I think probably the whole thing was somewhat disorganized. It seemed like they didn't really know what was going to happen. They kind of all walked up. They probably didn't even know before ahead of time that they were actually going to get into the building. I mean, I know there's a lot of grey around what actually happened. It seemed like some police seemed to be letting them through quite easily. My understanding is there were people there who were tooled up, and they some people were calling for the head of Mike Pence and so on and so forth. So I think we had a mixed bag there for sure, but I think a lot of the LARPers, probably of the online dating coach variety who were there, were probably there more for the memes and the lols than for the for actually doing anything effective, like you say. But I would agree with what Carl just said, actually, which is, it seems to me that the GameStop situation that we've been seeing was actually, I mean, not physically as brave, but it was more calculated, and it was more sort of like there was an end game in sight, and there was more strategy behind it, which seems to me to be a somewhat more valuable thing to have done in a way. But Paul, what's your take on this? Because you've just joined us. We're just talking about this whole thing between, picking your battles, obviously the capital thing. When is it sensible just to throw caution to the wind and go in, versus actually take a step back and thinking, what's this going to achieve?
Well, it's got to be a risk-reward measure, right? Got to see if the reward that you're going to get from what you're trying to do and the action you're taking is worth the risk. Well, the problem that we have right now, and what this whole capital nonsense is all about, and what you see it's on social media and what you see in politics right now, is basically Facebook culture kind of coming to a head and manifesting itself into a gathering, because people don't want to actually do anything, right? They want to like pretend that they're doing stuff. They want to put thoughts and prayers on their Facebook page. They want to share a meme or share something for solidarity. They want to stand around in a street somewhere, as if that's actually going to do anything. Actually doing stuff requires putting yourself at real risk. These people were stupid enough to think that they weren't actually at risk with what they were doing. There's probably a small percentage, right, that thought that they were really freedom fighters or whatever they thought, and they were really off in their own little world and thought they were really doing something. But for the most part, the majority of the people there were just standing around in protests. And then when they were let into the Capitol, because they were let in by certain elements of the security, certain areas where they breached, they were actually allowed to breach that for whatever reason. So that'll be interesting to see if anything comes out of that. But I mean, they just thought they would go in and take some cool pictures for the gram, you know what I mean? And really make a statement. It's like Facebook culture just showing up live, right? Yeah. And that's pretty much what it was. They didn't realize, oh, wait a second, there's actual consequences to what you're doing. You know, like, oh, wait a second, I'm going to get a criminal charge for, yes, actually, you're going to get a criminal charge.
Yeah.
Now, if they cared about doing things, actually doing actionable things, that takes hard work and that takes risk. You're not just going to show up somewhere and be like, yeah, I'm going to hang out here. And then all of a sudden the whole system's going to topple. You know, the Boston Tea Party wasn't one dance move that solved all of our problems in America. we kind of had a like Revolutionary War, if you recall, right? And so like that's the thing though, that requires discipline, that requires showing up to stuff, gathering in groups, and you know, doing things, taking up lawsuit against maybe media sources for certain biases or censorship. I mean, there's a lot of action that should be taken at small grassroots efforts that could, you know, get bigger over time, showing up at everything from, you know, state capitol, like actual meetings, and campaigning for people to get different people in office. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff, and it takes years, right? Whether you're taking up arms and you're deciding to fight, that's years of a war, which I don't think we need to do that necessarily. Or whether we're just getting active and doing stuff, it's going to take years and a lot of no results for a long time. You know what I mean? But people are too lazy and they don't want to do that. They want to put out a meme, or they want to pose for a meme. I'm holding up a podium or something. Or I'm holding up a piece of furniture at the Capitol, giving a thumbs up, man. We're really going to show them that we don't like Biden. Like, okay. There's people in Facebook right now and they're still waiting for Trump to come around and do his like big thing. He's gonna do something big, guys.
March the 4th.
Just wait.
March the 4th.
It's March 4th now? Because it was
like
January 6th was the date before. You know what I mean? It's almost like the what is it? The Armageddon religious people. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, the world's ending this year. Okay, it didn't end. We really mean next year. Yeah, that's like what they're doing. Because and why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that because they're waiting for some savior to come in and save their ass. They're waiting for Trump to fly in on a cape, you know what I mean, in his golf bag or whatever, and a couple hot bitches, and fucking just be like, "That's it, you're all fired," or whatever they think's gonna happen.
Like, for America for another 4 years.
I want to jump in on the back what Paul just said there. It's that's a really big thing. That with the problem with the whole that one of the big problems QAnon movement, right, was that it was an it still was a what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're giving your personal responsibility away to what you perceive to be a higher power. It's like, oh, Daddy Trump will take care of it. Oh, like the QAnon thing will take care of it. Like, trust the plan. And
Subjugation.
It's this whole idea of like, don't take personal responsibility for your life. Wait for this other power to solve the problem for you, which is the wrong attitude to take. Anytime a movement, I don't care what side of the political spectrum it's on, anytime a movement tells you, trust me, I'll take care of it for you, run the fucking other way, because you should be the one taking care of your own life's problems, not not trusting in something else to magically solve it all for you. And one other tiny thing we should chuck in here on someone mentioned it earlier in the chat. I lost the comment. It was regarding Mr. Pat Stedman. Was you have to also remember the fact that he had dropped like 100K of bets into this thing. So there is the sunk cost aspect of it. Rather than like admitting, oh shit, maybe I was wrong, I am going to double down into this sunk cost and go all the way with the thing.
Yes. Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because we're talking there maybe a little bit more about retreat, aren't we? And tactical retreat. And tactical retreat is, something that has been used by the military. It's a tactic of war, isn't it? And yet, because of the way that social media works, it's very hard to put yourself out there and to be, I stand for this. And then a bit later on to sort of say, oh, actually, perhaps I was wrong, and sort of modify your position. But actually, in many cases, is that the sensible thing to do?
Well, my take was just, I was thinking about this from like a courtroom perspective, right? Because you always have the whole thing with The argument against the death penalty is if you wrongfully convict someone and you find out 20 years later, you can let them out of jail, you can give them some money to kind of make up for our society doing a great error onto them. If you've killed them, there's not a lot you can do if you find out they weren't guilty. And this is the same thing here. You could have done what Paul said. You could have engaged in grassroots activism. You could have taken the time needed to build your own candidates, your own political party. But instead, you storm the Capitol. And there's kind of no coming back from that. You have no plan B. You have no other option for, okay, we're now in jail. How do we bring about the change in the country that we want now?
Yes. But they were, to some extent, they were victims of disinformation, weren't they? And I don't want to sort of get on anyone's tits here who's sympathetic to some of these things. But looking at it, take a step back, it would seem they believed this disinformation. They believed the QAnon narrative or adjacent narratives to QAnon, in the sense that they believed this was a battle between good and evil, that actually it was all in the bag already anyway, because trust the plan, that Trump was going to pull this masterstroke at the end. And
it's a wonderful hypocrisy, though, isn't it, Troy?
Well, yeah, but they were going to be on the side of good. They were going to be the avenging angels in all of this. And instead, they're facing criminal charges. So I suppose the question then is, how do you keep rational? And how do you know what is a battle that's worth fighting or not? Because these people clearly, there's plenty of hucksters and grifters in that space for sure. But many of the rank and file in that space, they completely believed in this. And actually many of the QAnon people on the inauguration night were looking aghast, going, well, what happened? I thought all of these, these military were going to come in and arrest Biden and Hillary Clinton. And, it was just a bit of a boring ceremony. And then everyone went home. What the hell?
Troy, let me leave you with this thought, man.
Yes.
Ask any one of those masculine podium stealing LARPers what they think about, girls who get sexual assaulted. You know how they have you got to take your own, teach men not to rape. And they always say personal responsibility. You don't go out in alleyways at night. You always make sure you treat your own personal safety. This is the part that I have a problem with. It's that they're trying to hold everybody else to one standard, but then cry victim when it happens to them. It's like, are people gullible and easily manipulated and need to be protected? Or are they autonomous beings? And I find it very disingenuous when somebody on one hand will say that about, feminists. Oh, they're just getting suckered in by feminism. They're such victims. Like, no, it's personal responsibility. But then when it happens to them, it's like, well, it was some weird QAnon psyop that got me. It wasn't my fault. But you see what I mean? It's normal things too, because we always ascribe the motives to other people, and to us, it's always an external factor. Oh, they did it because they're bad people. I did it because I was tricked. Well, that's just, right? Yeah, that's a tribalism thing. And it's just not very effective. And I find when people start crying the woe is me, I got hoodwinked thing after the fact, it's like, you gave up that argument the instant you started talking about feminism taking away women's agency as a bad thing.
Well, we've lost critical thinking, and we've lost a sense of standards when it comes to what the actual truth and information is. And this is why, in my opinion, we have to attack this problem with really media and censorship. Because why would someone believe in this? Why would somewhat normal people actually? We're not talking. There's always a crazy conspiratorial types, right? But there's normal people who gravitate towards some of these conspiracies. Why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that because there isn't information. There's a lot of misinformation out there. The information is not being presented in a truthful manner. Everything is so biased now with the media and whatever their story they're trying to tell, and what they're trying to appeal to their fan base and their sponsors. Right now you have corporate sponsorship and entities that are controlling the narrative right now. Manufactured consent and manufactured ideas is what's happening. And so people will watch that and they'll go, well, we know this isn't true. We know this is BS. So what is true? Oh, here's some conspiracy that comfortably explains it. Conspiracy theories are attempts to comfortably explain things that you don't actually know, because there's a lot of disinformation out there, right? And so right now it's being done mainly through social media platforms. I mean, censorship and community standards on any of these platforms, including the one we're at right now, and this one here, YouTube, is not nearly as bad as Facebook has gotten right now, is they are literally censoring ideas. You know, they're not just censoring their standards. You don't even know what their standards really are. I just got off a 7-day Facebook ban from a post I made 3 months ago that there's really no violation of any kind of standards that I can tell at all. And it doesn't matter that I, try to dispute it, it doesn't matter. They don't care. But you get flagged for your ideas. I'm sure if I was going through I don't know, if I was talking about gay rights or feminism or Black Lives Matter and I was, cursing and being inappropriate, I don't know that I could probably take things a lot further before I would get a Facebook ban, so and then of course you got you present something from the news. If it doesn't fit what the fact checkers, right, think are appropriate, which has to do with ideas, they'll put a warning on it that though this isn't even, this isn't truthful or this is whatever, whatever that warning says. I mean, this is just even kicking Trump off of social media, right? Off of Twitter, off of his platforms, a standing president. If that isn't overt censorship, I don't know what else is. I mean, never mind that, riots that killed a lot more people than what happened at the Capitol were being orchestrated through Facebook, and other entities, right? Through Facebook groups, people were showing up to places like Portland.
And now being nominated for Nobel Peace Prizes.
Yeah, probably. And so, this is the problem, though. This is the problem. If we can't have talk about ideas in an uncensored fashion and have critical thinking again, we're screwed. Like it's just all chaos.
Yeah. I don't think this is new though, Paul. Like I'll use an example here. I got a 1948 edition of like Popular Mechanics. I love reading through this because it's all the same shit we have now. They were selling lies about the communists were making apples that grew on vines like grapes and were 3 times the size, and they were taking everything over. Tons of lies there. Chicks talking about how to take better selfies with like the camera with the fucking gunpowder in it.
Interesting.
We had the same issues back then. Try talking about communism. They'd be claiming censorship too during the McCarthy hearings.
Do you think it's in your face more then? Is that?
Oh yeah, it totally is amplified. I'll agree.
Yeah.
We just took the world and amped it up to 12. So, but that's the thing though. As a solution, that's great because it doesn't change what you have to do. It just means that the stakes for not doing it are higher. So we kind of forcing ourselves to step up. As to before where, a little media manipulation, that's fine because I can still barbecue on the weekends. Now it's like, no, it's media manipulation. You got to be more savvy about this shit. You can't trust Facebook Karen, who's just wildly speculating on half-truths and hopefully coming up with something that makes sense. Like, did the moon rise in the morning because the moon's in the sky, or is it because Apollo fought off, whatever god in the morning? It's just, and you're right, it's a critical thinking thing. And it's always been there. The only difference is now we're kind of suffering the consequences where previous generations got to live in ignorance. That's my take on it anyway.
No, interesting comment about. Sorry, it was real quick. The comment about Rollo saying, we're the age of emotion and not reason. I think that's maybe the biggest difference. In 1948, people weren't emoting so much about this stuff, and it wasn't in their face all the time. Maybe the disinformation was out there, but people now are so emotional and revved up and just about these things that they're yelling and crying in the streets. I don't know, man, but it's
the crying thing is a bit new. I'll grant you that.
Let me ask Cappy a question here, because this is what interests me, right? You're from a fairly libertarian angle, okay? And for me, I probably am with a small L. I'm not into the gun laws and stuff because I don't even live in the US. But, in a general way, the idea of, listen, I'll do my own thing, you do your thing, I'm cool with that. I'm not getting involved. If you leave me alone, I leave you alone, that sort of thing. So in terms of picking your battles, is there, for somebody with that sort of mindset, is there a point at which you say, well, hang on a minute, actually enough is enough. Now is the time I've got to stand up and I've got to make myself heard about this.
Yeah, and that's pretty much been my entire career as an economist. Is like, I'm not going to storm a Capitol, but I have 20 years of research and data where I've tried to argue and make reasoned evidence and convince the voting public or just my fellow colleagues, of the merits of that. But when it comes to where I'd actually draw the line, things like you're violating my rights.
Yes,
and then and another thing is, I'm not just going to go run and kill you, because then I end up in jail. We got to figure out what can I do that is going to be effective over the long and increase my chances of having you stop violating my rights. So, I mean, if you're attacking me physically, yes, I will fight back. If you're trying to steal my car, I'll probably pull you out and hit you over the head with something. But if Google or YouTube is going to, deplatform me or take down a video or whatever, it's like, well, okay, do I run to the Google headquarters? And it's like, no, you have to be more tactful and strategic about it. So there are instances, because every day, to a certain microscopic level, my rights are being violated. I don't like welfare people stealing my money. Well, what am I going to do? Mow down people at the welfare office? I can't do that. So and another thing is like, look, the world ain't perfect. Show me a place where somebody's rights weren't trampled on at least a little bit. And is your life worth sacrificing? I think that's something that we also saw here. A lot of these people, they don't strike me as, earning their six figures and an esteemed profession or firm and had something to go. I mean, this was about the biggest thing they had in life. Me, I got a free life. I got, for lack of better words, opportunity cost if I were to end up in jail. So it's kind of like, can you live without it? Is this part of human nature? People are always going to be lazy. People are always going to live off of you. Girls are going to divorce you and take half your crap. Okay. I wrote a book somewhere in there about numbers and analyzing them. I'm aware that this is going to, but can you do anything about it? Might be the first question. And that's kind of where I, as a libertarian. So philosophically, yes, I'm completely enraged. It's horrific that 40% of our money goes to the government. 30% or 75% of that 40% goes to pay for other people's shit because they're too lazy to work. But what are you going to do about it? And do you want to ruin your life in the process? So it's practicality versus idealism, whether that's libertarianism or any other political ideology you have.
Yeah. Well, see, Joel says, we've been talking about Capitol riots pretty much the whole show so far. Wish we move on to boomer hedge fund managers losing their money.
Can I ask a question before we move on? Because I think we've been talking about the Capitol riots now for the whole show. And I think we've been tiptoeing around the real question. Does anyone believe that Pat really bet $100,000 on Trump? Because I'm not sure how alpha you guys are with your girls. I'm pretty sure if I told my girl I lost $100K betting on Trump and we won't be going on vacation for the next 2 years, my going to jail would be a better option.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot.
What's worse though?
There's a lot of smoke.
Losing $100,000 or lying about it to get clout because you want to pander to people who thought it'd be cool. That's the question.
Dork. I don't even know what he is. I didn't even know who this guy was until you guys started talking about him.
He's like a better version of us, really. He's upstream of us.
Better. It's definitely better.
No, I mean that's how he prescribes himself.
And I was like, okay, bro.
He's an interesting case study. He's an interesting case study for what not to do, probably in this space. But does anyone want to pick up on boomer hedge fund managers losing all their money? Obviously, we were talking about this before. I
love it. I don't have a sexy opinion. I just think it's awesome.
Fantastic.
It's hilarious to watch because I don't really have a skin in the game here or cheering on one group or another. But I like seeing otherwise powerful people who historically have always needed a bailout or have. At minimum made markets inefficient, speculators and all that instead of and I understand the role that speculators and hedge fund managers play and all that. But they always take these risks. And once every, it seems 15 years, we got to bail them out. We got to bail out long-term credit management. We got the SNL bailout. We got the financial crisis bailout. And I'm just like, all right, it's not even your money you're buying. And it's just nice to say, hey, there's this new risk through the internet where people can also manipulate the stock price, but to your disadvantage. And so I still think that it was foolish for these people to drive the price up of a company that puts underlying fundamentals. I mean, it's a very expensive trick you just played. I mean, with your own money. And I'm glad you played the trick, but it's not sustainable because you're these people. What's the price now? Did it come back down to what a regular PE ratio?
No, $327 a share. And
it's still up there.
Yeah, it still is, and it's probably going to hit 450 on Monday, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the people who they're reading through these
come crashing down though.
Eventually. Yeah, I mean is GameStop even profitable? I mean the price will come back down to a rational level, a sensible PE or dividend, because otherwise long term it's not rational. You won't have a stock market much longer.
That short sell was going to bankrupt GameStop anyway, so all those people were already fucked.
Yeah, well, it did make sense, GameStop, as a value investment back when it was trading about $5 because there was a lot of value still in the company, defended by both their properties, defended by the income, etc.
Just the brand name too.
Yeah, but the whole thing that I like about this, and I even threw some of my own money at it just out of principle, just because I saved $1,000 not drinking for a month. I'm not sure what having $1,000 a month liquor budget says about my lifestyle, but fair enough.
Says it's awesome.
But anyway, so the reason I like it is that I think capitalism needs to have bankruptcy and accountability, and you can't have capitalism without bankruptcy. I mean, that's like Catholicism without hell. It just doesn't work like that.
Bingo.
So, and the bankers have been unaccountable, and they've had every kind of head start you can think of. They get preferential treatment when there are new shares being issued to the market. They get in on early before the IPO, so when it hits the market, they've already got their positions loaded. They get bailouts whenever they fuck something up. And they don't learn from any of this. Like 2008, they're still speculating with extremely high leverage, because they get away with it, and they know that, okay, if we fuck up enough, our paid up politicians in Washington are just going to bail us out. At least in Europe, they come up with this thing. Okay, yeah, if your bank speculates too much and you need a bailout, we'll bail you out, but we're also going to nationalize you. And that means that all the shareholders are out everything they own in that bank, so at least they're a little bit more on top of it. But I love what's happening, and if they can keep doing this, we have to remember, those guys on Reddit, they grew up on World of Warcraft 40-man raids. Crashing the stock market or manipulating the stock market requires way less coordination than Black Temple.
Well, this is going, well, hopefully this has, not is going to, already has, woken up a lot of people to, like what you guys were just saying, like the preferential treatment between here's one set of rules for hedge fund managers, and here's another set of rules for the retail market, for the regular population. And you saw what happened. Robinhood immediately, Robinhood destroyed their reputation in a day by stopping people from trading. They're gone. They're done. And it also exposed the hypocrisy in it. Citadel gave them a call, and they're like, all right, we're going to stop retailers from trading. It shows everyone they're all in bed with each other.
Well, yeah, it should red pill people.
It should red pill people. I don't want to piss off Rollo and red pill in a different context.
Oh my god!
It should wake people up to the double standard that's going on here. Because there was a whistleblower inside them apparently, and so they got a call from the White House directly, and they went and friggin'. You guys see the press conference? So they asked the press secretary about it, and her response was, "Oh, we have the first female Treasury secretary." She didn't even talk about the issue. Didn't even talk about the fact that Robinhood was trying to stop retail investors from participating in the stock market. She just tried to distract by the fact that there's a female in a position of power now. Oh, look over here, magic! Watch the distraction with my hands. Forget all the corruption and double standards that are going on over here. Forget the hypocrisy. There's a woman in power over here. Magical.
I have the solution to fix it, though. It's not that difficult. We're finally coming to terms as a society with ending the war on drugs, mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years if you get caught for anything. Tell you what, keep those, but make them for financial crimes and any form of financial shenanigans. You get 10 years automatically in pound me in the ass prison.
Bingo.
That should clean up that street very, very fucking quickly, because
Well, that's never going to get cleaned up because the people who make those laws are the ones in the pocket.
Yeah, you're asking the wolves to clean up the hen house.
Yeah, bingo.
Hey, dude, you had U.S. Congress people and senators doing trading after getting COVID briefings before the COVID briefings were made public. These people are all in league with each other, and it's kind of ironic we're talking about this 5 minutes after saying, how could these crazy people fall for the Q conspiracy theory?
Although,
well, the difference is though, like they're literally, it's very naked and open. Like you don't have to take much of a leap for this.
They're not even trying to hide it, Carl. They're not trying to hide it. It's like in plain sight, you know.
But what about all of the dudes? What about all the dudes who are like, no, man, Biden's going to bring communism into the United States?
Yeah, you guys have been worried about communism since the 50s.
I mean,
Well, they're not irrational, Ryan. If you
what I
look at
mean
the-
is like,
if
how
you look at
shitty
the
is communism
budget-
where after 70 years they still can't get in?
Well,
I mean, Mexicans
it's
figured it
true.
out in like 2 weeks with a bottle of water.
But no, it's I under as the economist, and Carl's the same. If you look at it, we're trending that way, and so I understand the political motivations and concerns of people about communism. At the same time, I can understand the left's genuine hatred of bankers and people in cahoots and bailing out bankers. So I wrote a book a long time. Carl, you probably love it. When I was a credit analyst in banking and predicting the bubble that was when it was going to crash. I even had to update my charts because the book was published the day Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy, and it was happening so fast. I had to go in and update all my charts because I've been running it 8 months previous. But yeah, no, these are concerns. But yeah, I know you're not terribly political, right? But you might want to, and you could look at the OECD, you could look at the budgets. American and Canadian finances are parallel quite similarly. But it's not. I don't think Biden's going to bring in communism. I think he's just too old, and he's going to do. And the powers that be are going to say, if all of a sudden Bezos and Zuckerberg are forced to fork over half their assets. So like, wait a minute, hang on now. So I think there are some more saner heads that will prevail, but the general trend has been to do that. But I don't believe Biden is going to set up pogroms and we're going to have the Holodomor here next year.
It's a
Personal
contrast.
hot take on that.
All right, go ahead, Carl. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on Clary here. Because, of course, you see what he's seeing, and you see that everything is trending towards more the nation state playing a bigger place in the economy. But I think the biggest problem with American economics specifically is that you're kind of half in on socialism and half out. So you have socialism for the rich, the military-industrial complex, everyone over 65 for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So those things are fine. But you cut them out for everyone else, and you can't kind of have half socialism. Either go full libertarian capitalism or find something other than, and at least stop nagging on communists, please. Can't you find a new antagonist? This is like watching 8 Die Hard movies and you're still fighting fucking Hans Gruber at the top of Nakatomi Plaza number 8.
but we've been trying half and half, haven't we? That's kind of what neoliberalism is, isn't it? The sort of attempt to do, a sort of big government, but also have the capitalist machine running in the background or in the foreground as well, right?
Well, you have a problem it's just there's a fundamental value difference here between the two different parties. But I mean, it's you have more, don't even look at it like political parties. Look at it as people who are more collectivist and people who are more supporting of individual rights and freedoms. And so when you're dealing with the people that would do more policies that would eke us more towards a socialist government, it's not so much like the communists are taking over Red Dawn, oh my God, they're parachuting outside of my window. It's not like that. It's just, it's a boiling the frog scenario. It's instituting more and more centralized government control and more social policies. Well, what is the mindset of people who want socialist policies? It's this idea that people cannot regulate themselves and they cannot regulate their individual behavior and cannot reap the consequences of those behaviors. That if you allow for that to happen, somehow society will collapse or whatever. Yeah. And so it's this idea that we have to make these policies and for the greater good. And people in power tend to think, they seem to get this ideology that I'm better than all of these other people, because objectively they are better at certain things that which is maybe how they got to where they're at, right? But they think, well, I'm better, smarter. Some even take a spiritual angle, like I'm ordained to be in this position somehow, like I'm manifest destiny over here or whatever, like God put me here kind of thing, gave me all these wonderful talents and abilities and opportunities. So I have to take care of everybody else now. I have to make these policies because these people, they're not smart enough to take care of their own families, to take care of their own lives. We have to do policies and do things and offer them healthcare because they're not smart enough to be able to figure out how to do their own healthcare. We have to do this, you know what I mean? And that's the contrast in values. And there's other people who are saying, well, wait a second, we need to preserve individual rights and freedoms because that leads to opportunity and more opportunity for more people. And yes, not everyone's going to be equal, but with opportunity, even people who screw their lives up are going to be relatively okay. You know what I mean? And so on. So it's these contrast in values, these contrast in ideas. And unfortunately, as certain entities get bigger, like think of big box stores. Big box stores benefit from more of a socialist environment where people are giving government checks and where people can't leave their house. You know what I mean? Amazon, if you have to order all your stuff because there's a pandemic, or if you are broke and on government checks and have to go to Walmart to afford your stuff, who is that benefiting? You see what I mean? And so I think that's what we have here is we just have this contrast in values. Right now, the people who are after individual rights and freedoms are losing the battle. We're not even in the right battle. We're trying to have like a discussion and a fair fight and all these other things, and they're owning all social media right now and censoring people. You get what I mean? We're fighting one fight over here, and they're having and they're winning the war on a whole different front. And so that's what needs to change. And any of this stuff, be it the hedge fund thing, that just tells you that there's people that are going to try to fix the rules to their advantage if we allow it, right? That's all that is, of course.
Well, how is that other thing differing, though? I want to get rid of all this manipulation so the world is better for all of us. That's the same thing, but with altruistic motives. I would argue navigation's the rule. There is no giant war. We're not yelling into a hurricane. Right. Too many people want things a certain way, and that's why we have things the way they are now, which, fine. That's the way it works. The point I find is most important is what do I do about this? Because as soon as you start having this altruistic, I can save the world from this censorship thing, is when you start storming the Capitol and stealing podiums.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a very good point, Ryan. And that's what I was going to ask. Because bring this back round to picking your battles. At what point do you... And there are many ways to stand up and say this isn't right. One of them is to do a show like this, or to write articles, or to have a Twitter account.
That's a perfect example.
Those little, it's not all about getting up and doing the physical thing. But I think in the manosphere, because the focus is obviously on masculinity and on, direct action, and sometimes even physical or even violent action is thought to be central to that. I suppose the question is, at what point do you say, well, hang on a minute, this is no more for me. Now I'm going to get...
How about once the guy realizes his biggest problem is he can't get laid and he's insecure about his identity? Maybe now is not the time to try upending the world. Why don't you just focus on those two things and then steal podiums, But here's the last point to that too. Really quickly here. Game developers have like this thing where they always make bugs in games, and the one thing that gamers have learned is that if you want them to fix a bug in the system, you exploit the shit out of it. Remember that Carl, remember this, the World of Warcraft one, where there was like this disease that like spread like a virus and killed everybody's Warcraft carrier in like major towns.
That was brilliant, man.
Yeah, but that's the point. How did they get it fixed? They exploited the absolute shit out of it until it was impossible to ignore, and then it had to get resources put to be fixed. So I would argue storming the Capitol wasn't a good idea. Bankrupting a couple hedge funds, I guarantee it will do more good in the long run than any amount of being part of history for the gram will ever do.
Although people would argue, critics would argue, well, it doesn't take any physical courage to sit in your mum's basement and put some money on.
I mean, I guess I'll just have to live with my blue pill idealism with my cash of money.
Exactly.
The one thing that has united everybody across political spectrums, this GameStop thing, you've got people on the right and people on the left being like, yes, bring these to their knees. They love it. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's because everyone has this idea. I think everyone wants to. Most people are cool with competing, but nobody wants to feel like you have some guy like everyone else is cheating. Like if you're playing Monopoly with your cousin and he's constantly stealing money from the bank, when you discover that, you're going to be pissed off because he's been beating you for years, but he was cheating all along. And it's kind of the same thing here. Everyone knows that a percentage of people in this society are cheating. They have the rules created to benefit them. And now everyone's like, Wall Street is the prime example because they go bankrupt every 10 years. They get a huge cash infusion and go back to doing the same thing. And then they need a new cash infusion in 10 years. They're like Italy in terms of state economies. Italy, too, before the euro, went bankrupt every 10 to 12 years.
Welcoming Rich to the panel. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Good to see you, mate. So we've just been chatting backwards and forwards about this, when is the right time to pick your battles? And we've talked a bit about the storming the Capitol thing and Stedman and taking individual action with that. And then we've been talking about GameStop and the sort of David and Goliath battle as far as that's concerned. And I was asking Aaron, actually, and maybe you'd be able to answer this question as well, as a sort of a libertarian type guy, where it's kind of like, well, listen, you do your thing and I'll do mine. And, I won't get involved with your stuff if you don't get involved with mine. At what point as a man do you think, right, this is it, I'm going to have to stand up, take action now, I'm going to have to be heard, do whatever it takes to try to right this situation?
Which situation are we dealing with specifically? The GameStop thing, the storming the Capitol?
Well, I guess the question is for you, what situation I'm guessing that you wouldn't. I'm pretty certain you wouldn't storm the Capitol. You might be more sympathetic towards the GameStop people. But what sort of situation for you would be like, right? This is it now. I'm going to have to get on the barricades because this.
What hill do you want to die on?
Yeah, like you'd have to have your back up against the wall, and it's like you don't have any other choice but to become violent and to, go to a place that you wouldn't normally go. But I don't think that's ever going to happen in the way that society runs today. Like we need like an extinction level event, like a meteor hitting the earth and wiping out government infrastructure and all that stuff for like stuff to get that bad. I don't think we're ever going to see it that bad in my lifetime unless something like huge happens.
Yeah, exactly. What about if you lose a bet on Twitter to some bloke because you betted on Trump winning the presidency?
Well, let's start by not making retarded bets. Like writing checks that that you can't cash. Like, let's start with that, right? Yeah, exactly.
The title of his next book: "Stop Making Retarded Bets" by Rich Cooper.
Coming soon with foreword by Aaron Cleary.
Yeah. Did everyone see this Doge coin yesterday?
Yeah, and I got people like DMing me going, "Hey, do you think it's a good idea to buy it?" No, stupid. You don't buy in on something silly like this.
Yeah.
The funniest thing about the entire thing is like I've been following Wall Street Bets for a while. And yeah, people there, they care about money. They want to make money, but most of them are like, fuck the money. We're doing this purely for the fucking lulz.
Exactly.
And it's like, Reddit memed Donald Trump to the presidency in 2016, and now they're like, okay, we've almost crashed the modern Western world. What do we do next? Let's crash the economy. That will be top tech.
So I want to kind of come back to the
fully down with a reset, man. Right. Anytime it comes, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I got ammo and supplies and survivability. It's fine. I'll be the local warlord. But I just want to come back to that, like, because there's a question. Well, what hill do I die on? I think the point is, don't die on a hill. How about don't do that if you don't have to, right? I mean, people are like throwing their lives away for literally nothing instead of finding out ways to be more productive and influence other people around them. And I think that's what this idea of like the altruism thing I'm talking about in like, fighting a bigger fight. Well, yeah, that's a higher set of principles. I'd like to think that the actions I take, I'm thinking about a higher set of principles when I take actions, but what I'm not involved in this meme culture and this again it's again Facebook showing up live at the Capitol, pretty much, right? I don't need to do this grandiose act where I'm the star of my own show, right? In order to make a difference. And that's the problem. Everyone's trying to be the star of some show that they think they're in. They're all a bunch of women, right? That's like how women run their lives. All a bunch of dudes now doing the same thing because of Facebook. Look, the little bit I help people with just my Apex Mindset business, helping people better their lives in that way makes for better human beings, having better relationships, and then they influence other people around them. There's a ripple effect of the small things that you do. I'm going to have to look into other platforms because of censorship on places like Facebook and support those things, kind of channel people there, as I'm sure we're all going to have to do at some point. That's not, is there an altruistic higher principle there? Well, yeah, we're fighting censorship in our own way, but there's also some selfish motivation too, in a sense that I want to get my stuff out there, right? Now, some of it's not quite so selfish in the sense that the reason I want to get stuff out there is to help a lot of people too, but I'm influencing what I can influence with my actions around me in my own way. But there's a humility to it. I don't think I'm the star in some show as I'm doing this, or I'm going to single-handedly do this grandiose act that everyone gets to see on Instagram that's going to overturn the system. You know what I mean? Like that, it's that mentality, this extreme emotional, I'm the star of my own show, narcissism that people have from social media.
Yes.
Get off social media.
I think that's a really key word, actually, narcissism. I was thinking that before because it seems to me, and particularly when you look at the age of some of these guys are sort of, Pat Stedman's 30 or just over 30. Some of these guys are, well, they're somewhat younger than myself. We haven't got Myron on the show today, so the panel's a little bit boomer heavy. But, it's kind of like...
I am the same age as Myron, thank you very much. Don't lump me in with you boomers.
Oh, fair enough. But there's this sense that... guys who somewhat younger guys and maybe boomer guys as well. I don't want to make this an age discriminatory thing, but there is this sense of like, oh, we're in this battle between good and evil, this momentous point in history, and I'm going to be part of that story. And I myself, I just feel like, I've been around the block a little bit now, and you've seen history playing out in your lifetime, and you've seen that actually these huge, incredible seismic events that you think are going to happen and everything's going to be overturned and everything's going to be different. It kind of doesn't really, nothing actually changes that much.
No, and you have perspective.
Yeah. So is this narcissism, or is this a lack of perspective in some of these people who are sort of storming the Capitol?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah. Definitely both.
Yeah. And just one other thing, and I got to get going just for the benefit of the audience and all that. And I think Ryan and I have talked about this a little bit, but whether it's the guys storming the Capitol, but also if you guys remember the pink pussy hat protest the women did, what did that achieve? It didn't achieve anything.
Sold a lot of pink hats.
Yeah, it's a lot of pink hats. And if you consider all the energy that went into that, be it the financial resources women had to pay to get the flights, the hotels, the time, labor alone, all of that. Well, what if they had instead made cogent arguments and talked to a fellow man or something like that to try and win, or pen a very good, intellectually honest piece on the internet and maybe have it published on something that's a little bit more mainstream. That would have gone much further to convince me of the plight of women or what than a bunch of gals sophomorically and childishly wearing pink knitted pussy hats on their head, flying around, as Paul was indicating, basically for vanity and to get Instagram pictures and an element of crusaderism as well. But it didn't achieve anything. So it's not sexy. It's not charging the hill. It's not putting your flag. It's having a conversation with, immediately your family, like, hey, kid, you're not majoring in the liberal arts. Hey, kid, have you really thought about this socialism thing? Oh, I know your teacher said that's all wonderful, but do you really think so it's having this and it's a slow, long process. And it's not going to be a revolutionary war. It's not going to be a battle. It's certainly not going to be one night in the U.S. Capitol that does it. But also, as Troy was pointing out, there's nothing that really changes dramatically. It's slow, glacial, gradual changes where occasionally a Republican or Democrat gets elected, or a Tory or Labour over in the UK.
So where would you stick your flagpole then, Aaron?
My house. Loved ones. Like, if anyone came near my nieces, they're dead. They're just dead. You come near me, you're dead. Private property, depending on how valuable it is, but that's where. And another thing is, I don't want a multi-front war. I mean, there's only a few things in my life that are going to be worth putting not only my life at risk, but my freedom and the financial resources and time resources that would go into fighting a battle. But yeah, things that there's not a lot, but I will, definitely my house, my property, my loved ones. That's about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how about this? Because when we did that show about the Great Insurrection, which actually was also about Capitol Hill, although we're talking about it again largely because of what's happened in our little corner of the internet recently. But when we were doing that, I know that I was saying, and Rich was saying, and some of the rest of us were saying things along the lines of, look, you've got to look after yourself, make money, make muscles, learn game. You've got to just tend to your own garden and let other people worry about their own thing. And I did see some of the comments coming back on that with guys saying, yeah, but you guys are just, you don't stand for anything. You're weak. You're not you've got to I mean, how would
always says a faceless avatar hiding, behind some icon on their desktop. Like,
exactly. It's a loser. It's like hold the line. You've got to hold the line. It's like, what do you mean hold the line? You're sitting in your mum's basement tweeting. Like, what?
You notice that you got to hold the line, not we have to hold the line. Not come with me to hold the line. You go do it.
Bingo.
Hey guys, I'm taking off. I'll see you. All right.
Have fun,
Aaron. Have a good one.
Do any of
Hold
you
the
remember
line.
Coney 2012?
Oh yeah.
Because I think that was kind of like the start of this shit. Because there was this warlord in Rwanda or something called Joseph Kony, who liked to kidnap kids and girls and whatever, dragged them into the jungle to fight his own revolutionary war against the government. I mean, you could say he was trying to take a capital. But this came to the ears of some Western people, and they started this huge campaign that Kony was going to go down in 2012. So every major city in Europe and probably the States was plastered with freaking Kony 2012 stickers. Guess what happened in 2018? Kony's still out there. 2019, Kony's still out there. 2020, I think he's still out there unless he's died of natural causes. I hear
Got him.
The jungle is kind of short, and it's kind of the same type of slacktivism. But we're starting to see where slacktivism is impacting the real world. Because like QAnon figured out that we can actually weaponize stupid and send them to Washington.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people on Reddit figure out, hey, we can weaponize autism and crash the stock market.
Yep.
And I think that's just going to keep happening. I said it on Twitter the other day. 2020 to 2030 is going to be the decade of weaponized autism because people who have been marginalized in that regard, who are people you don't really fuck with in digital spaces, like the autistics, the people who have nothing to lose, the people who don't really care about winning anything because they're just doing everything for fun and they don't take the world seriously, but they're very intelligent, tech savvy, and connected. Those people can do a lot of massive impacts on computerized power grids, stock markets, heck, maybe even hack Dominion.
Allegedly.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny though? Elon Musk for 2069 president.
Well, I mean, that wouldn't be so surprising, would it? Let's face it.
Oh, he can't run for president. He's South African, I believe.
Not American, yeah.
Oh, well, then it would be quite surprising. But
Even more surprising.
He'll be
Johnny Drop Tables could run, no? His kid.
Yeah, but that Coney thing that Carl was bringing up is an excellent point, because if you remember, everybody on social media, I think the main platform at the time was Facebook, did those 3 lines on their Facebook icon to virtue signal how much this mattered to them. Yet nobody got on a plane with weaponry to go hunt this guy down and execute him. Not a single person.
Not anything. And that's the thing. I mean, I had a set of principles and I wanted to fight terrorism and some things. And so guess what? I joined something that would allow me to do that. And I went and did that. right? That's actually doing something. There's no meme about it better not be a meme about it with me doing anything, right? In fact, a lot of things that I did, it's not things I can talk about on the internet, but I'm not looking for, that big grand gesture that I can have have my fame, my 15 minutes. And that's what all these people don't want. They don't want to do anything. They want to feel like they're doing something. It's the illusion of action, right? I'm doing this thing and I feel like it's all about the emotions, man. I showed up someplace and I said Black Lives Matter really loud, and I'm
a part of the right side of history.
Now,
guys, really doing something, and they're not doing anything. What are they doing? Nothing. Zero.
This shit is so retarded. I can't believe we actually have to have a serious argument about this retarded shit. And there's people arguing, no, guys, it's not retarded. You're just cowards. It's like,
Well, I think it's
in
just
the chat said humble brag about me. Fuck you.
yeah.
Well, Ryan, we kind of talked about this on the show earlier, though. Like the guy who it's the narcissistic fantasy. So he creates himself to be something so great that he has to be world changing. Otherwise, he's not living up to his potential.
Mm-hmm.
Then the reality smacks him in the face. He realizes that he's fucking worthless, and that creates a narcissistic injury. He's now angry at the world, and now he has to kill the world, so he goes and does something stupid. And stupidity will never be masculine. Like, go back to like the Stone Age with the guy who was like, that mammoth trampled my brother. I'm going to rush him down solo with a rock in my hand and kill him. Would they be like, oh, he was really heroic? Or would they be like, big elephant crushed little man?
But at least he had balls.
Far too many young guys today watching like episodes of Vikings or something like that, and pretending like they've got like 3 or 4 siblings and they're gonna go avenge the death of Ragnar Lothbrok and go kill some, empire. It's like, dudes, stop talking. It's like just start doing it if you're gonna do something and be effective at it, or just shut up and step aside and let the men deal with stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That was a great quote,
Absolutely.
actually. That was a great quote by Carl.
That's a lovely axe, Paul. I like it.
Thank you. I'm going to avenge the death of Ragnar when this is over with.
Stupidity will never be masculine. Love that. You got a few fans on here today, Carl. Actually, somebody else just said in the chat, "Oh, we need to get Carl on here more often," which I would agree with, mate. What are you down for some more regular appearances on the show?
Yeah, as soon as we get done killing off Wall Street with the rest of the retards over on Reddit, I'll be right here with you.
I think we're kind of coming up to the end of this now. We're probably into the last 10 minutes. So I don't know if anyone's got any further sort of perspectives on this. I mean, I've always been a bit of it's a shame Aaron's gone. I've always been a bit of an enjoy the decline kind of guy, to be honest. I've always been a bit like, well, watch the world burn, get on with your own stuff, make your own money, do your own thing, whatever. But there is this pushback, particularly in our space. There is this pushback to that, which is like, well, no, hang on a minute. That is, a high quality man would never say that, because he'd be out there on the battlefield fighting for what's right. And I've always been sort of a bit like, well, but
my
like,
HBO Max masculinity doesn't agree with you, kind of shit. Yeah.
Well, I've always been a bit like, well, but listen, what's right for me is that the stuff in my life goes according to the plan that I have. Do you know what I mean? And that doesn't necessarily involve putting myself out. And in some ways, these actions that these guys are taking or talking about taking are sort of collectivist in nature, because, they're like, no, we've got to fight for a better society. And it's sort of like, well, okay, that's fine, but you're fighting for the collective as opposed to your individual benefit. Because as we've seen with Stedman, getting involved with something like that could get you as an individual into trouble. So at what point does concern for oneself as an individual become selfish or become like too much, and actually you should be thinking about the pack a bit more?
Once you're not worth a damn, that's when all of a sudden the crowd matters. It's like, what was the joke about social? You ever hear this communist jokes? Like, would you give a man two, if you had 2 houses, would you give a man a house? He'd go, sure. Yeah, so if you had 2 cars, would you give your brother your car? He goes, sure. And then they ask the communist, if you had 2 shirts, would you give your brother a shirt? He goes, no. He goes, why? He goes, because I actually have 2 shirts.
It's pretty simple.
I like the other one. You had one I used back in the day whenever communists would argue that, well, you have more money than me. Wouldn't it be fairer if I got half? I would say, well, money is a result of effort and time. Getting a girl is a question of effort and time. You have a girlfriend, I don't, so I'll give you half your money if I can fuck your girlfriend. None of them seem to be cool with that kind of sharing of wealth.
Well, indeed. Although a lot of those guys, what they really want actually is a sort of communist system within the dating marketplace or the sexual marketplace, because they actually want controls, don't they? They want limitations of female sexuality so that they can
balances. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's often a mismatch between their stated political affiliation and the way that they actually would like things to run in real life. But listen, we're kind of coming up on the 90-minute mark, so perhaps it's time that we sort of go around the panel and just, if you've got any final words on this, when is it right to, when do you have to stand up and take action, and when is it prudent not to? When do you, how do you pick your battles? And then if you want to just say what you've got coming up this week and so on and so forth. So let's go around the panel. Sterling, you're a man who sticks his flagpole in the into various things quite frequently. What's your take on this?
That's risk taking right there. But it's look, my opinion on this is look, I'm all for guys having balls and being brave, but you got to do it with intelligence behind it. So I would the thing I would like someone to take home from this is that calculated risk taking is an important thing.
Exactly.
Emphasis on the calculated side of things.
Yes,
I think a lot of people. This comes down to the whole hold the line, be brave. Look, I don't have a problem with guys having principles. I don't have a problem with guys standing up for their principles. But think for yourself every now and then.
Absolutely, I would agree. And what do you have coming up for the guys in the next week or so?
Well, actually, today I'm driving down to Orange County. I'm back in Los Angeles. I'm driving down to Orange County, meeting up with a few of the guys from John from Modern Life Dating's Body Language Mastery Group. Hanging out with Red Pill Thor, hanging out with Cam, who's in the chat as well. I've seen these guys pop in the chat here today. I'm going to be going having lunch with them, and then I'm off to Vegas. And I might be meeting up with the Tates actually while I'm out in Vegas. And then just doing my regular live streams Monday, Friday, and then dropping some smaller tidbit advice, sex advice videos during the week. So check that out.
Very good, very good. Check out Sterling on YouTube and Twitter. And now, Carl, Mr. Black Label Logic, what's your final words?
Well, piggybacking a bit of Sterling with risk analysis, I would add to that when the upside is greater than the downside and when you know that your action will be effective. There's no point in, if the risk is beneficial but the action won't be effective, there's no point in standing up for it. It's better to step back and think about how to actually be effective in what you're doing. What do I have coming up? The end of my sober January is tomorrow at midnight, so I'm going to be doing a fuck ton of drinking.
Very good, very good. And hopefully doing some live streaming while you're intoxicated as well. We should do a show next week or something while you're on it, so that we can take advantage of that.
Yeah, why does nobody want me on their podcasts when I'm not drinking? It's like Rob Sass was like, "Can you come on?" I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not drinking for January." Okay, we'll book it for February when you're back to drinking. Like, what the hell?
Hallelujah, good stuff. Okay, man. And Ryan, final thoughts?
Just check out the videos in the channel. I'm going to put a link in the chat. Sign on to the newsletter. Second book is underway. It's an update with Dread, basically surviving and thriving in low-sex marriages, how to fix that stuff up. It's a much better book than you think. It's come a long way since it was a bunch of pickup artists talking about make a girl feel a little bit of anxiety and solve your problems. So come check that out. You can see me writing it in real time, so you can follow along as it's going through. Again, check out the channel. I hate to say it, it's not a lot of red meat. It's mostly actionable content with just a little bit of flair to it, so it'll be enough to wet your willy, but it's not going to be enough to get your load off. But come check it out. You're going to enjoy it.
Sounds fascinating.
A lot of phallic references.
What a beautiful analogy. Paul, what's your final thoughts and what you got coming up?
Well, I think you guys summed up most of my thoughts on the topic at hand. I would just have to say, really focus on just to add a little bit to it, don't worry so much or focus on what's going to make you feel good about doing something. Focus on what the results are going to be. Those are two different things. All right. The illusion of action is a trap that people get caught in. Don't do something that's not going to be a waste of your time and energy. At the very least, that's opportunity cost, because that's time and energy that could be placed somewhere more productive. think about the results you're going to get when you decide to put your ass on the line. I'm all about putting my ass on the line, but I'm looking at what results are going to happen for me. And I'm making sure that when I do that, it's not just about getting the feels for doing something, but actually that I think that there's going to be a positive outcome from my actions. So that's my only take on the topic. But I would say main thing is get on my channel, Apex Mindset, hit the subscribe button. I think I'm pretty much, rarely get through algorithms. So it's just more grassroots effort to get you guys to, see my content and share it. I am working on a course. I'm hoping to have up. My challenges are technological more than anything else, but I should have a frame mastery course out soon. I am working on editing a book still, but I think I'm going to put the book editing kind of on pause for a bit and really get this course out. I get a question probably a couple times a week from somebody. When's your course going to come out? When are you going to put out a course? And so this course is going to take you from the pickup phases and kind of setting yourself up for success with internal game and mindset, and picking up into casual relationships or plate spinning, into relationships that are more longer term, how to structure that, be it monogamous or polygamist, we'll say, more than one girl. And regardless of where a guy is in their phase of development, whether they have an LTR or whether they're, spinning plates or whether they're not doing anything, the course is going to be a help to you, because even if you're in a relationship, the pickup stuff and the psychology behind it and what works will help you communicate with your long-term partner, right? Even if you're not or don't plan on being with a long-term partner, the game skills that you have to develop to make that work is going to help you in the initial phases with any chick. So hopefully it'll be good. It's kind of high demand. Guys are really wanting me to do it. So the demand is there. So I'm going to kick it out, but get on my channel and more announcements for those things will be there.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks, man. And Rich, any final thoughts and what have you got coming up?
Yeah, so to the point of picking your battles, if you guys are familiar with my YouTube channel, Entrepreneurs in Cars, I have a playlist called Playing to Win. So let's focus on that for just a second and understand that if you're going to play to win, the component that matters is the winning part. So you make logical, educated choices that are going to lead to a win. You're going to play hard for that win. Rushing the capital, thinking that you're going to overthrow the government or your favorite contender is all of a sudden going to win because you throw a hissy fit, is not playing to win. Think about that the next time you pick a battle. So to the point of what I'm up to, well, I just got a 7-day ban on Facebook, and I'm pissed because it was just like manly banter. I was just joking around with somebody, and I said that he was being a pussy, and I got banned for that. So I'm going to set aside all the projects that I'm doing right now. I've got to finish my audiobook, which is just about done. And then it's going to get edited, so that'll be out soon. But I got to get my community off Facebook and build it on its own platform and app and everything like that. So that's what I'm working on. And if you haven't got the Unplugged Alpha, grab it. It really irritates Aaron Cleary when you guys buy it, and you give it great reviews. So please go forth and be a force of awesomeness. It is available on Amazon right now, both in Kindle and print. Audible's coming soon. And yes, I am reading it.
Excellent stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, I will be doing live streams all next week. We'll be doing some more Art of Seduction breakdowns with Jack Napier. We're going through the whole of the book of The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene, breaking it down, analyzing it, making it relevant in terms of your dating life. Hopefully get some other guests in as well. We had John MLD in last week talking about some of that stuff, and that was really good. So I got that. And aside from that, just please subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out, really help me to build up the audience. Give us a like, give us a comment, whatever underneath. Give us a dislike if you want. It doesn't matter. It all helps the algorithm. And hit that notifications bell as well because that will allow you to see when I'm releasing new videos and stuff. I'm doing some shorts on here now as well. I'm also going to start putting some cut down clips of some of the live streams. Also, because I know not everyone always has time to watch a hour or 90-minute live stream. So we're going to be doing some shorter clips on the channel also. So subscribe and look out for that. And with that, that is about it. So thanks everybody for joining me today. Thanks everybody for giving your views on picking your battles, which I do think is a really important topic actually for for everybody watching this. So I think that we've really got into a good discussion on this today. Had some really great points from everybody. So many thanks, everyone. And with that, we will see you again very soon.